Hey, today I want to introduce you to Clay Adams. Clay is a writer and a voiceover artist, someone I've known for a bunch of years at this point, and I just love the guy. He is talented, he is giving, he is supportive of our creative community, and I am beyond excited to have him as part of the Baby Read-Through. So you're going to hear a bit of Clay's journey as an actor and a voiceover artist, and then also his philosophies behind running Kickstarter and his creative process. I think there's a ton of fantastic information for you, and I hope you dig it. Enjoy. All right, so Clay, one of the reasons I quickly became a fan of yours is basically we can smell our own. And by what I mean by that is when our circles started to come near each other, I saw a guy who embraced the idea of, if I have a story to tell, if I have something I want to get out into the world, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to wait for a gatekeeper to come around. I'm not going to wait for somebody to give me permission. And so seeing that, I mean, that's just inspirational to begin with. To see somebody who not only walks the walk, but you're also a massive supporter of people who do this, right? Not only supporting with your time and your energy, but your knowledge. I always appreciate people who have stepped on landmines and then tell people how not to step on the landmine. I think it says a lot about the person and what the person is trying to get out of being a creative. So on that alone, I became a Clay fan pretty damn quick. And then I found out there was a secret part of Clay, and that is being a professional voiceover actor. And that's kind of where I want to start with all of this is the before time. I know you spent a little time in New York. Yes, no, maybe?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
15 years.
All right. So tell me about, I always love origin stories. So tell me the origins of Creative Clay.
All right. The secret origin of Creative Clay. It goes way back, man. It goes way back. I started acting when I was a kid. I was 8 years old. We had just moved to a suburb of Atlanta called Alpharetta, Georgia. And I'm not quite sure what it was that made me do it, but I was out grocery shopping with my mom. I saw posted on the wall, where they have all the missing kids and stuff. Right when you walk into the grocery store, they also had some kind of ad for acting lessons, and it was at a studio that was in the same I guess strip mall, for lack of a better word, where the grocery store was. And as my mom likes to tell it, I literally grabbed her hand and dragged her there and said, "Sign me up."
And how old was this again?
I was 8.
Okay.
I was 8. Yeah. And I started acting, taking the acting classes, and the woman that taught the classes had a really good relationship with all the agents around Atlanta. So whenever they needed a kid for an audition, they'd call up my teacher and she would say, "Okay, well, I got this person, this person, this person," and they sort of match that description. At that time in, the 80s,
Yeah.
in Atlanta, it wasn't like it is today. Like today, it's,
Yeah.
they're shooting Marvel movies there. They shoot, The Walking Dead, you name it, they shoot it in Atlanta these days. Back then it was very different. It was more like radio, voiceovers. So I did a lot of those, commercials, industrial films for businesses, like training films and stuff like that. And I did that for a good 10 years. I probably got my first professional gig somewhere between the ages of 8 and 9.
Wow.
And then, and I did that for 10 years and went to college at NYU. I studied dramatic writing and acting. So a double major. And then when I got out, I thought I thought I was going to be like a Broadway guy. I thought I was going to be just doing theater all the time. And somehow I fell into doing soap operas. And I was on the soaps. I was on As the World Turns and One Life to Live for probably about 8 years.
Wow.
With some All My Children thrown in there. And I started doing that, and then a few years into doing that, I got a call from my agent saying that they were recasting a role on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they had an actor who recorded like half the season, but they felt like he didn't sound young enough.
Hmm.
And voiceover animation is really difficult to get into. They tend to use all the same people,
Yeah.
but apparently when they were casting this role the first time, the production company had gone through their entire group of actors, so they had seen everybody.
Yeah.
And the person that they had found is apparently a wonderful guy. He got plenty of work. Don't feel terrible for him. They were still casting him in other stuff, but it was felt that he didn't sound young enough. So I came in, I auditioned, and got the gig.
Wow.
And like I said, that was just a super rare thing that they opened it up to auditions, but they did. I got in, and once you're in, work kind of begets work.
Hmm.
Like once you get in and you show that you can do the job at a professional level, they tend to think of you for other things. So I started
Okay.
booking things on like Pokemon, and then Yu-Gi-Oh, and I did several seasons of Yu-Gi-Oh as a few different characters, and the rest is history. Is
Man,
that too
so
long of a secret origin?
no, that's wonderful. And kind of my first follow-up question is somebody who from the sidelines has watched that industry.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of said work begets work. So who once you're in, who is kind of tapping you for that next gig? Is it the production company? Is it a director? Is it a manager and an agent that now kind of has this cachet to start talking to other people on your behalf?
I think it's all of the above. Um, for me, it was really the specific directors.
Mm,
So once you get in and start working with the directors, they become aware of what your abilities are, and what you can handle and what you can't, and what characters you might be good for. So anytime there was like a young sounding character, they'd come to me. And you'd have to audition, and
yeah.
there may or may not have been anybody that I was going up against, but they at least wanted to hear what I could do. And then I think also because they knew that I was from the South, so like when I did Yu-Gi-Oh, they were looking for a character that they wanted to have a Southern accent.
Mm,
So they came to me and asked me to do the Southern accent. So I did that character, Jesse, for a
okay.
while, and then they had some other character. I don't even, like at this point it's like I don't even know how it all worked out, um but it was mostly, I'd say, the directors who wanted me because they'd worked with me, and they knew I was reliable, and
Yeah.
they knew I could give them what they wanted.
That's beautiful. Again, I'm just fascinated by this. Like, if I could tell younger George something to do, like voiceover sounds like the best gig. Um,
It
you
really
know,
is.
no, like pants optional,
That's right.
eat that tub of ice cream without any, guilt or anything like that. Um, so if people are gonna go through their uh Turtles library, if they're gonna go through Yugo, you mentioned Jesse, who are who should we be listening for?
Sure.
Like if we go back to that version of the Turtles, who are we
Right.
listening for?
So the show was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fast Forward, and it was a short-lived version of the show, like right before they went over to Nickelodeon.
Hmm.
The show, they decided they were going to bring the Ninja Turtles to the future, hence the name Fast Forward.
Of
I
course.
played a character named Cody Jones. And I wish you know what, my action figure is in my office, so I can't show that off, but you can look up
Oh,
Cody Jones action figure.
I
But
you know
he's
I may just stop you right there, and I try not to swear, but I'm gonna do it. How fucking awesome is it to hold your action figure?
It's pretty
Can you?
cool.
I mean, like, just look, it's just you and me, and
Yeah,
so just fanboy all out.
sure.
Like, what's it like? I mean, that's anybody who Star Wars, who's a wrestling fan, who's, you know, any of these properties, who's, you know, has had them, yeah, has dreamed of becoming one.
Yeah. I mean, it's super cool. You know, like it's not my likeness, right? So it's not like, you know, Mark Hamill and Luke Skywalker, but it's super cool to be, you know, I keep it on my desk, so I can see it, you know, all the time, and, you know, hey, that's me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. It was so the character was so Casey Jones and April O'Neil got together, knocked boots, and I was their great grandson in the future. A super genius who was obsessed with the Ninja Turtles. I created some kind of time machine that brought them to the future. We had a whole bunch of adventures. I like to say that I was the cousin Oliver of that show. I don't know that it was a particularly popular character or a particularly
Oh,
popular iteration of the show. We did one season, and then we were actually in production on the second season. We were recording the second season when they canceled us.
uh,
Apparently, so there was a Ninja Turtles movie that came out right around that time that did very well.
mm-hmm.
And whoever was I want to say that it was Peter Laird that was in charge of it at the time. And he saw the movie and saw how it performed, and he said, I want the cartoon to be more like the movie.
Gotcha.
So they had to send the turtles back to their time period, and sadly, Cody Jones didn't make it back. But the show didn't last all that long after that. I think then they wound up going to Nickelodeon and
Mm,
hiring all new actors. It was just a totally different iteration of the show.
gotcha.
Then, but I did get to do, now this is cool
Yeah.
because I did get to do the Ninja Turtles 25th anniversary movie. They did a special movie, and it was like the Ninja Turtles met like every version of the Ninja Turtles that ever existed.
The multiverse.
Yes, the multiverse. So I got to play Mirage Donatello. So
Huh.
I was like the gritty black and white version of Donatello from like the original comic books.
Okay.
And it's like and again, like it's one of those things where it's like I've recorded at this point I've recorded so many cartoons that I don't somebody will be like, hey, did you play this character on this show? And I'm like, I don't really know if that's what IMDb says, or um like I recorded, they weren't sure, how they wanted to cast certain things. So some of these characters, like I recorded every single Ninja Turtle, every single Mirage version of the Ninja Turtles. And apparently they decided to select me as Donatello.
Okay.
So I played him in that. And then, so Yu-Gi-Oh! I played a character named Jesse Anderson,
Mm-hmm.
who, like I said, was kind of a Southern guy. So he was sort of like I kind of patterned him off of Owen Wilson from like Shanghai Noon.
Yep.
So he kind of talked like up here, and I don't know karate, but I sure know crazy. And he would do like, I know the big line I had to always say was like, I summon Crystal Beast Topaz Tiger. And then I played another character on that show called Crow Hogan, and he was a real like gravelly voiced kind of guy. So he kind of talked like way down here, and he was like a rough around the edges sort of guy. And that's my cartoon life.
That's beautiful. How often are you walking into a recording studio or, a booth with just like the vaguest notion of what you're there to do? It
A
seems
lot.
very fast. It seems like you're in fast, like, as you're going into the booth, they're handing you pages. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, for the animation stuff, like for Ninja Turtles, so when I went in, like I said, they recast So I'm trying to remember how we did it. I think they had already recorded the first half of the season. So I came in,
Mm.
it was like the middle of the season, and I started recording those episodes, and I'd never done it before, so I didn't know what to experience. So we'd have a rehearsal in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd go to rehearsal and read around the table with all the Ninja
Okay.
Turtles, and then so I'd at least have like an idea of what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I'd go hang out at Cosmic Comics on 23rd Street, which I don't think is there anymore. I'd hang out there or Madison Square Park until it was time to actually do my record. And you're not recording with anybody else. It's just you alone in the booth. And the script doesn't have any kind of description or anything. So I like it was just a line. And so I'd have to give 3 different line readings. And sometimes they have to be like, oh, right. Well, we forgot to tell you there's explosions going off all around you. And like, there's an alien spacecraft that's coming and like trying to kill you. It's like, oh, well, that really changes the way I read that line.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you kind of like learn to play. Then once we recorded the back half of the season, they would go back and do what's called ADR.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where now they've drawn the show based on the voice performances. And now I was going back in the first half of the season and replacing the original actor, but now I had something to look at. I had something to play off of, and I think that made a huge difference. And so it's funny. Like I listened to that season, and I'm like, okay, I'm more the character in the beginning, and then about halfway through the season, those are my first episodes.
Right.
And by then, I'm not recording every single line again. They're just having me if they rewrote a line or they need to change something. So that was kind of a weird experience. But with like Yu-Gi-Oh, that show was produced in Japan,
Mm.
so the animation was already done. So you're having to do what's called I mean it's ADR, but you have to match what's called the flap.
Yep.
So the characters' mouths are just moving, and you've got to time out your line to sort of match, the mouth. So that was another kind of learning experience, and you just kind of have to get in there and play and have fun.
What a weird skill to develop and get really good at.
It is. It is.
Um, so in case anybody else is curious, and now as a father of a son who really enjoyed his first voiceover recording, um, quick tips,
Yeah,
for somebody wanting to maybe start out, and then like I said, you are a fantastic giver of learning experiences. So some landmines learned the hard way or observed the hard way for people to learn about now.
sure. So, I mean, honestly, the biggest tips I can give in terms of voice acting is that it's more about the acting part than the
Mm.
voice. So I would say take acting classes, particularly improv. I think improvisation, I'm not going to pretend like I'm this great improviser. There are people that are so much better than me, and I found improv to be so intimidating, and I didn't
Mm.
want to take improv classes. But those have been the most helpful to me in not only in voiceover or on camera work, but also just life. um that like and I try to bring that spirit to any, like, even working on the comics.
Yeah.
I'm trying, when I write comics or making comics, I try to think, okay, yes, and what how can I take your idea and not poo poo it, but build on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a really valuable skill to have. So improv, acting classes, and then, like, for voiceover specifically, there's just like weird things, like, I mean, one, stretch every
Mm.
day. That helps your voice. There are certain vocal exercises you can do. Kristen Linklater, who's a voice coach, actually, I think she just passed away this week, so that's, I guess, why she's top of mind. But she's got a good book with some vocal exercises, freeing the natural voice. There's and then, you know, just things like avoiding dairy or any kind of sweets, like right before going in. Anything acidic you don't want to have right before going in. I'm a big fan of the hot toddy, or anytime you feel like you're getting sick. I've got a great hot toddy recipe I can share with you later, but that knocks it out. Like anytime I feel like I'm getting a cold, it just knocks it right out. But it's also just, you know, it's good for opening up the throat. And then like another so another thing I was doing when I was doing these the voiceovers for the animation, I started somewhere along the line being a rock star for kids. So I played in a kids band, and I was singing, and what I would I would sing for like 3 hours a day, first thing in the morning, for these kids. And then I had to learn I couldn't then go in and do voiceover after that. You know what I mean? Like it was just, it was horrible. I would have to cut back actually on the singing gigs, because as much as I enjoyed them, like that's just brutal on your voice. Even if you're trying to be very careful.
Right.
So I guess, I don't know. Don't be a rock star if you want to be a voiceover
That's awesome.
guy. That's my advice.
You had alluded to it, and I kind of want to pick up that thread, is how our orbits came into each other, which is through comics. And you have a long history of writing and creating and making. So how did that part of your creative output come into the world?
So I started, I was the guy when I was a kid, if I wasn't acting or going to an audition or something like that, I was sitting at home making my own comics. And so when I went to college, in fact, my second year of college, I did the second edition of what was called the Stanhattan Project. And that was where like a couple of Marvel editors came to NYU and taught a class on how to make comics. And
you remember who were your teachers then?
Mark Powers maybe was a guy, and then there was somebody else whose name escapes me, and I hope I got the first one right. And to be honest, I didn't complete the class. I only went to a few classes because at that point in my life I wasn't super into comics. And so I wasn't up on everything, and I felt like I felt like I just didn't know who the characters were. Like we were supposed to be pitching Silver Surfer and doing all this Silver Surfer stuff. And I think this was around the time of like Heroes Reborn, or so there was some kind of big event that I didn't have knowledge of. And I felt like I was behind the curve. I had just started my acting major, which was very intensive, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to do it. And there was one guy in the class that outshone everybody else. And I thought, I can't compete with this guy. He's just like, he clearly is teacher's pet. Everybody loves him. And he's still teacher's pet. Everybody still loves Brian K. Vaughan. And what are you going to do? You know?
You don't know who you're in class with.
It's true.
10 years later, and you're like, oh, that's who I was in class with.
He started getting work right away. I mean, like right after that ended, he started getting work from the X-Men office right away, and worked on a bunch of stuff. And so it's funny because I came home from like the first class and was sort of like complaining about this guy and he knows everything about comics and blah blah blah. And to my roommate, her name was Ruth, and about a week later, Ruth and Brian were dating, and so I had to take back everything I said about him. but I did get to sort of see like his his early days and his early struggles as a creator who, editors wouldn't return his emails, and he couldn't sell something to save his life. But that was really instructive. I think, like, watching everything that he kind of went through. And
Yeah.
then and so then when I decided to kind of get serious about making indie comics, it was like 2013. I had already left New York,
Hmm.
and was back in Atlanta. And I don't know, it just seemed like a new sort of golden age for indie creators with
Yeah.
Kickstarter and web comics and all these exciting things. It just seemed it seemed a lot easier to make a comic than it did, when I was in my early 20s and just having, no idea how to do this thing. And so I started a website doing web comics, and I thought I was going to make a bajillion dollars selling 99-cent downloads, and that did not happen. And then in 2014 we tried our first Kickstarter, and it was so difficult, and
Mm.
I really struggled. Like, I think about halfway through the campaign I realized we're not going to fund, like, we're going to fail unless I do something, drastic. And so I started, I don't know why I didn't think about this before launching the campaign, but I started Googling, how do I fund a comic book Kickstarter? And I came across a blog written by a guy named Tyler James,
Mhm.
and it was filled with great information. I just devoured his blogs, like anything the guy wrote on the subject, I read it. And then I was like, I'm going to implement all of this.
Yeah.
And we just barely funded thanks to that. I used, I think, Green Inbox, which is no longer around, or like it's in a different form today, but I used that to sort of reach out to my network and really got them on board.
Yeah.
We barely funded, and then after that I was kind of like, this is a lot of work. I don't know that I want to do that again. And so I took a little bit of time off. There were some other things going on. Alexander and I were asked to pitch on a licensed properties.
Hmm.
So we did that. We were kind of focusing on that for a while, and a couple other opportunities that came our way. But then in 2016, I guess somehow, uh, from looking at his blogs or something, I got on Tyler's mailing list, and so I saw that he was starting the list launch program. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to get serious about building an audience. And I started doing that. And then he opened up the comics launch course, and I think that's how we met.
Yep.
And in fact, Tyler very specifically said, I remember he said, you need to meet him. You guys should meet. So I don't know if I dropped you a line or how we first connected, but definitely Tyler was like, yeah, you guys should know each other. And I guess the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been so. I may skip to the end real quick, just because you recently had a success. And part of the reason. So yeah, so this is called Comics Launch. Tyler James is the guy that created it, and I just describe him as my Kickstarter guru.
Right.
Again, the type of guy who, like you, is incredibly giving with his knowledge and his information. I mean, Tyler and I met 10 years ago when we were both trying to sling single issues at small shows.
Right.
So, but even back then, he was very just welcoming. He's a teacher by heart and, by past profession, and it shows. So this has all been, for me and for you, growth and
Yeah.
learning how to get better. Like I said, these are like learning that skill set as a voiceover artist. Like, where else am I going to learn this? Where else am I going to use this? The amount of skills that we've kind of developed for Kickstarter. Sorry, this is a very long way to say watching you grow over these last 4 years is amazing. And as we talk now, it's hit a bit of a crescendo because I will throw the ball back to you.
Yeah. So you wanted me to talk about Deadskins?
Yeah.
Is that the transition?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just,
Sorry, I'm not a professional.
no,
Yes, and me, please, God.
I'm slow on the draw. It's like, yeah, I missed my afternoon snack. Um, yeah. So I just had a campaign. I just had my best ever campaign for a book called Deadskins. We were remastering the book, so we did the first two issues together in one big, I think 64-page thing, issue, and then and it went extremely well. And I really wasn't expecting it. This is a book that, when I said we had our website in 2013 and we were going to make $1 bajillion selling 99-cent downloads, that's the book we made. And it just so happened that the artist on that book got very popular.
Mm-hmm.
She's gone on to do a lot of work for Image. She just drew a Wonder Woman book. That's Leila Del Duca. And then we also had we had a cover from Takashi Okazaki, who did Afro Samurai, and then a variant cover by Ben Templesmith, who was already kind of a name, but has gotten bigger.
Yep.
And also bigger on Kickstarter. So there were a few things that all kind of came together at once. Some of it's luck. Some of it was we hired really good people to begin with. But the fact that so many years later, some of those were bigger names than they were at the time, I think made it a really good time to get on Kickstarter. Also, the number of projects were way down, so I think we got a little more visibility at the time because people were kind of shying away due to COVID-19. And I had just been, I was part of the Comics Launch Mastermind, and I was talking to Tyler, saying, look, I've got this book. I've never tried to make my money back on it, from everything I put down on the art. And I'm thinking it might be time to sort of dust it off and put it on Kickstarter. And he was very encouraging. The mastermind was very encouraging. And then I also have to give a shout out to Charlie Stickney, the creator of White Ash, who he was the guy that was also just kind of poking me, going like, hey, there are not that many projects on Kickstarter right now, so now is a great time to launch something. And I just kind of quickly threw it together and didn't necessarily expect much. I remember the night before telling my wife, I don't know, I got a $3,000 goal. I don't know if that's, doable. And we funded in the first day. We wound up making we made just over $11,000. And then I've put it up on Indiegogo in demand, and we made an additional like $500 in the last couple of days since I put it up.
Beautiful.
So it's still kind of rolling. And the other thing that kind of helped, again, like just doing this for so long, my writing partner Alexander had a movie that was picked up by a company called Legion M.
Oh yeah.
And
yep.
Legion M happened to have a Kickstarter last year for a comic book, which also happened to be a Western, just like Deadskins. So we were able to go to Legion M and say, hey, Alex did your movie, and our comic is, it's a Western. Maybe people who backed The Girl with No Name might like this book too.
Yeah.
And their Kickstarter just happened to be the most backed comic book Kickstarter ever. And so they were able to share with their audience. That sent a lot of people in the last week, helped, drive it up. But that just so kind of goes to show you, like, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Do it over and over again. Your network will expand and you'll get better at it. And I'm just babbling at this point, but that's the story.
Well, I'm glad that you started going down that path that you did, because what I don't want that story to sound like is luck.
Yeah.
With the original crew you put together, with the Legion M part. So it's not luck that you were aiming for 3 and you got 11 plus. What it was, opportunity with a good product.
Yeah.
If you, and plus all of that work came together, or all of that came together because of your hard work,
Yes.
right? If Alexander isn't grinding and doing his work, he doesn't get hooked up with Legion M, which doesn't,
Right.
do what it does for you. It wasn't luck, it wasn't begging, it wasn't borrowing, it was earned, and it was earned through talent and hard work. And
Yeah,
you
I'd
guys
agree.
you guys got to, you guys got to feel your hard work coming back at you in a wonderful, surprising way. Like you said, worried that you were going to get to 3 and then getting to just kind of ride that wave through. Again, that's the seeds of your hard work for years. Because how many Kickstarters have you launched at this
So
point?
this was our eighth. This was our eighth. And yeah, when I say luck, I just mean more that, it was lucky that Layla wound up becoming kind of a name. It was lucky that, Legion M happened to have a comic book Kickstarter that was sort of related to ours, so that it made it an easy share. But you're right, everything that goes behind that luck is years of hard work.
Yeah,
And we did put together a good product. So
absolutely.
some of that is, we made some right choices in the
Yeah,
beginning, but timing for this Kickstarter, if we had kickstarted it 5-6 years ago, it might not have done the same. So timing
yeah,
is an element there. So that, that is a little bit of luck, but
yeah.
also, we jumped when we saw the opportunity.
And that's it. The stars aligned, and you
Yeah.
kind of had that jumping on or off point, and you said, let's see what happens. And so you went for it, which I mean is a gutsy jump in and of itself. And I guess maybe one more thing about the Legion M, you weren't afraid to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, worst, like they weren't sending anybody over anyways.
Right.
So if they say no, nothing changes.
Exactly.
But you had that relationship, you built that relationship, which again, and it takes guts. It sounds easy on paper, but it takes guts to write that email, send that text, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're opening up our blood, our arms at that point. We are bare in front of them.
Yeah.
But again, you took the risks, and it's knowing again how long you've been working at this, working at this.
Right.
It was wonderful to watch, so congratulations on all of that. It's
Cool.
fantastic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
I'm a fan of good stuff. Like I said, there's Tyler might know what he's talking about, right? Like
He's got a clue, that guy.
I like grinders. I like guys or creators. Apologies, creators who will roll the dice on themselves.
Yeah.
Who work against that part of your voice that says no one's gonna care. Why do it? What if you fail? Like, those
Right.
can get loud. And
Yeah.
it takes guts to do it despite those voices.
And those voices don't go away. I mean, if you ever think they do, going back to the beginning of the conversation and our conversation about acting, I always get stage fright. I always get nervous, sweaty palms, and it's just something you have to deal with. And I saw on the comics launch course Facebook group, somebody asked something about imposter syndrome. And
Probably me.
no, I don't think it was you, but I don't necessarily feel like I have imposter syndrome so much as, like, it's just scary every time. It's scary every time. What if nobody backs? What if I do this thing and people think it's stupid? You don't ever stop having those thoughts, but like, why not go ahead and do it anyway? You know,
Yeah.
that's my philosophy.
Yeah. And kind of two things just kind of bounce off of that. I mean, one, if anybody's listening to this and thinking about whether it's a Kickstarter or something, you've done this 8 times and you still have the nerves.
Yeah.
Take that as freedom that
Yes.
you're going to have nerves no matter where it's your first, 5th, 8th, 12th launch. Those
Mhm.
butterflies are always going to be there. Those nerves, those questions, they're always going to be there. So don't worry about it
Yeah.
because they're going to be there no matter what.
My favorite story that I like to tell about that is that I was a young actor, fresh out of acting school, and I would get so nervous every time I'd get on stage or in front of a camera or whatever. I'd get so nervous, and I saw Madonna on David Letterman, and she was playing guitar, and she said, I'm playing guitar for the first time on television, and I'm so nervous." And she said it. She said she was nervous. And she starts to play, and I can see her hands are shaking,
Mm,
and she's visibly nervous and visibly uncomfortable. And I thought, you know what? If Madonna gets nervous at this point in her career, it's okay if I get a little nervous too.
yep. My go-to is listening to Neil Gaiman
Yeah,
talk about imposter syndrome. And if Neil Gaiman says, I sit down and look at a blank page and wonder if I'm going to have it today, if Neil Gaiman is feeling that, then it's not a personal failure or issue or wiring. It
right.
just is.
It just is.
So there's nothing wrong with you. That's, for better or for worse, that's how we're wired.
Exactly.
And it's something I'm always going to work on. Like, it was not a joke when I said it was the imposter syndrome was probably me. But what you can do is you can start balancing that other side of your brain. You
Mhm.
can balance it with Madonna, you can balance it with Neil Gaiman, and kind of what you were talking about a little earlier about in this specific case, Kickstarters, you can balance that with homework, with research.
Mhm.
You can do it by learning how to get better at it. So you're nervous, but you've at least got that other side of your brain that can go, hold on, you've done X, Y, and Z. You've checked 1, 2, and 3, right? You can go
Right.
through kind of that more logical side that you have done everything you are trained and skilled up to do. And that, and use, like I said, that homework side to balance out the nerves and the stupid voices
Yeah,
that like to come out and
and
play.
after and any whether it's doing a Kickstarter or recording voiceovers or whatever, you do it enough times and you realize like you didn't die, any of the other times, like it's going to be okay even if you're nervous. That helps too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I had no doubt that I was lying to you when I said this would be a 15-minute conversation. So I really
I can talk for days.
I really appreciate it. I mean, again, I'm going to hit this nail on the head because I think it's important for anybody listening. It's I love your story, now knowing more of it, of, taking the risk on yourself, going for it, saying yes to new and probably uncomfortable situations,
Yeah.
but going in with open ears and open eyes, and gaining those skills and putting the work in. It's not miracle, it's not luck, it's hard work,
Yeah.
and it's wonderful to see all of that paying off for you. And if people want to learn more about you and your comics and everything, how can people find you? Where can we send people?
You can go to friedcomics.com and you can find me on Twitter. I am at Clay's Evil Twin.
Awesome, man. It's been wonderful to learn more about you. And again, I can't say enough for the friendship and the help and the sympathetic ear over the years. I really appreciate it. recording the first 4 pages for the demo with you was wonderful, and I can't wait to do the rest of the book. Thank you for coming on board and sharing your talents with everybody and me.
I'm excited, man. It's right back at you. Great knowing you, and I'm so thrilled to be a part of this project.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
And that's my friend Clay. I hope you dug it, and please look in the description for all of his links to follow him back. He's a good dude and deserves everybody's support, so let's give it to him. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with another episode. Take care.